The morning sunlight poured through the tall windows of an elegant rooftop restaurant where everyone had gathered to celebrate what was supposed to be the final family brunch before a beautiful wedding, yet the cheerful atmosphere vanished in an instant when Amelia calmly stood from her chair and announced that she no longer wished to marry me because she believed our future together had become empty and uninspiring. Every guest froze in stunned silence while I remained seated with complete composure, quietly watching the reactions spread across the room because I had already uncovered a far darker truth than anyone sitting at that table could possibly imagine. Just 2 days earlier I had accidentally discovered a hidden collection of emails on our shared tablet that revealed Amelia had secretly been planning an entirely different future with my longtime friend Nathan, the man who had promised to stand beside me as my best man during the wedding ceremony. Instead of confronting either of them immediately in anger, I spent 2 sleepless nights gathering undeniable evidence because I knew the people who had carefully built their deception would eventually expose themselves if I simply allowed them enough confidence to continue their performance. As Amelia continued explaining that she deserved a life filled with excitement instead of predictable stability, she carefully chose every sentence as though she had practiced the speech many times before standing in front of our relatives and closest friends. Nathan lowered his eyes and pretended to be shocked by the announcement, but I noticed the brief smiles they secretly exchanged whenever they believed nobody else was paying attention, confirming everything I had already learned from the messages hidden behind locked folders. My parents looked devastated while Amelia's family struggled to understand how years of shared memories could suddenly disappear during what was meant to be a joyful celebration, and the uncomfortable silence hanging over every table became heavier with each passing second. Even the restaurant staff slowed their work because everyone sensed they were witnessing something far more serious than an ordinary broken engagement. Although nobody except me understood that the real story had not yet begun. When Amelia finally finished describing how honesty had guided her difficult decision, I slowly placed my glass on the table and thanked her for choosing such a public place to reveal her decision because it would save me the trouble of explaining the full truth individually to every person we cared about. Her confident expression remained unchanged for a brief moment until I reached into my leather briefcase and carefully removed a thick folder containing documents, photographs, printed conversations, and financial records that would completely transform the direction of the morning. I gently placed the folder in the center of the table and explained that while Amelia had shared one version of the story, I believed everyone deserved to hear the complete version before reaching any conclusions about what had truly happened during the past several months. Every face around the table turned toward me with uncertain curiosity as Amelia attempted to interrupt, but I calmly asked everyone to allow me just a few minutes, because facts speak much louder than carefully rehearsed speeches. The first document I handed across the table was addressed to Amelia's father and contained copies of hotel reservations, restaurant receipts, and travel bookings that matched the exact weekends Amelia had claimed she was attending professional leadership seminars in different cities. Those records clearly showed that Nathan had checked into the very same locations during the same dates, leaving little room for innocent explanations as quiet disbelief spread across the faces of both families. Nathan shifted nervously in his chair and insisted there had to be some misunderstanding, but his voice lacked the confidence he normally carried because he realized every excuse had already been anticipated before he even spoke a single word. I then placed several printed screenshots beside him that showed months of private conversations discussing secret vacations, expensive gifts purchased with wedding savings, and detailed plans about beginning a new life together immediately after canceling my wedding. A heavy silence settled over the restaurant as Amelia desperately searched for words that could somehow erase the mountain of evidence lying in front of everyone, yet each attempt only made her appear more desperate because every denial was answered by another document from the growing stack inside my briefcase. Guests, who had arrived expecting laughter and celebration, now stared in complete disbelief, slowly realizing they had unknowingly become witnesses to a carefully hidden betrayal that had been unfolding for many months. Without raising my voice or showing any anger, I explained that I had already contacted every company involved in the wedding arrangements the previous afternoon and legally canceled every reservation made under my name before any additional financial damage could occur. I concluded by saying that while trust can be broken in a single moment, rebuilding a peaceful future begins with accepting the truth. And for the first time since discovering the betrayal, I felt completely free because their deception no longer belonged in the shadows where they had tried so hard to hide it. The peaceful confidence I carried seemed to unsettle Amelia far more than anger ever could, because she had expected tears, desperate questions, or emotional pleading instead of calm certainty supported by undeniable proof. Nathan finally pushed his chair back and accused me of invading their privacy. Yet several people at the table immediately reminded him that privacy could never excuse months of calculated deception carried out behind the backs of people who loved and trusted them. Amelia's mother quietly covered her face as tears rolled down her cheeks, while her father looked from one document to another with the expression of a man realizing that every generous contribution he had made toward the wedding had unknowingly helped finance a relationship built on dishonesty. My own parents remained silent because the evidence spoke more clearly than any emotional argument ever could, and the disappointment visible in their eyes carried far greater weight than shouted accusations. One of our oldest family friends carefully examined the printed financial statements and discovered that several expensive purchases had been made using the joint wedding account that Amelia and I had created to prepare for our future together. Those purchases included luxury hotel suites, designer clothing, and airline tickets that had nothing to do with wedding planning, leaving everyone at the table shocked by how carefully the money had been redirected for an entirely different purpose. Nathan attempted one final defense by claiming that love had simply changed direction and that nobody should be blamed for following their heart. But his explanation immediately collapsed when I revealed a timeline showing that their secret relationship had begun only weeks after my engagement proposal. The room fell into complete silence because it became painfully obvious that this was never a sudden emotional decision, but a carefully organized betrayal that had continued while both of them smiled through family dinners, engagement celebrations, and wedding planning meetings. I slowly closed the folder and thanked everyone for listening without interruption, because the truth deserved patience even when it caused tremendous pain. Then I wished every person at the table peace before calmly preparing to leave the restaurant. As I walked toward the exit without looking back, I realized the greatest victory was not exposing to dishonest people in front of a crowd, but freeing myself from a future that would have been built upon lies, manipulation, and broken promises. The moment I stepped outside the restaurant, my phone began vibrating, nonstop with calls and messages from relatives, mutual friends, and even people I had not spoken to in years because news of the shocking confrontation was already spreading across the city faster than anyone could have imagined. I ignored every notification without reading a single message because I understood that the chapter I had just closed deserved to remain in the past, and I refused to let endless arguments pull me back into a life I had already decided to leave behind. Instead of returning to the apartment where every corner reminded me of broken promises, I drove directly to the airport with only a single suitcase and a quiet determination to rebuild my future somewhere far away from painful memories. During the flight, I stared out of the window as endless clouds drifted beneath the aircraft, realizing that although my heart still carried deep scars, every mile placed between me and the betrayal felt like another step toward freedom and a new beginning. Over the following weeks, the consequences of Amelia and Nathan's actions became impossible for them to escape because trust, once destroyed, rarely returns no matter how convincing the excuses may sound. Friends who had once admired them slowly distanced themselves after learning the complete truth, while family gatherings became painfully uncomfortable as more people discovered the months of deception hidden behind their carefully maintained public image. Financial pressure soon replaced the excitement that had once fueled their secret relationship, because the luxurious lifestyle they had imagined depended heavily on resources that no longer existed after the canceled wedding and withdrawn savings. Small disagreements quickly turned into bitter arguments about unpaid bills, expensive rent, and broken expectations, proving that relationships built on dishonesty often collapse when reality replaces the thrill of secrecy. Meanwhile, I embraced a completely different path by exploring new places, meeting inspiring people, and investing my energy in personal growth instead of dwelling on resentment that could never change the past. Each sunrise reminded me that losing someone who never truly valued loyalty was not a tragedy, but an unexpected opportunity to build a stronger future filled with genuine respect, honest relationships, and the kind of peace that no betrayal could ever steal again. Several months later, I received an unexpected message from an old mutual friend who explained that Amelia and Nathan had ended their relationship after endless arguments, financial struggles, and the painful realization that trust could never exist between two people who had first connected through deception. I quietly wished them well without responding because I no longer carried anger inside my heart, only gratitude that the truth had been revealed before I invested the rest of my life in a relationship destined to fail. My own journey continued in ways I never imagined as I accepted new career opportunities, built meaningful friendships, and slowly discovered confidence that had nothing to do with another person's approval or affection. Looking back at the painful events of that unforgettable brunch, I realized the greatest reward was never exposing betrayal in front of others but learning that genuine happiness begins when self-respect becomes more valuable than holding on to someone who has already chosen dishonesty. One peaceful evening I stood beside a quiet lake watching the sunset paint the sky with brilliant shades of gold and crimson, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for every difficult lesson that had transformed me into a stronger and wiser person. The memories no longer brought pain because they had become reminders that truth eventually finds its way into the light, even when deception appears powerful for a short time. As life moved forward, I understood that every ending quietly prepares the way for a better beginning, and the broken future I once feared had become the very reason I discovered a more meaningful path filled with honesty, purpose, and inner peace. Anyone facing betrayal should remember that losing people who refuse to value loyalty is never the end of the story, because real strength is found in choosing dignity over revenge and hope over bitterness. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.